All right, welcome back to the show. We have a very special guest today, JONAS WOOST from Tell a Story Hive. Maybe start off with your backstory, where you're from, some training, your past experiences, that kind of thing.
So I'm from Germany, I'm from Hamburg, Germany. Where I grew up. When I was 19, I moved to the UK to work, and you already mentioned music industry. Worked in the music industry in London for around 8 years, and then I moved to Canada, worked more in the music industry, and now for the last 4.5 years I've been here at TELUS working on the Story Hive program.
What did you learn from your past experiences and your past roles that you've had?
So I spent a lot of time in the music industry. And then 4.5 years ago, I started working in film and television, and I was, I guess, a little nervous. It kind of felt like I would have to start again. You know, I learned so much in music, and I really had a good idea on how the music industry functions and operates. I felt like I would have to learn all that again in film and television, and it really turned out it wasn't the case. The fundamentals of it are really the same, regardless of whether it's music, or it's film and television, or it's books, or it's whatever it is. There's like sort of stuff that always works the same. Instead of me having to learn a lot of new things, I was actually able to take the learnings that I already had from the music industry and hopefully apply them to film and television, especially because music has been going kind of through the digital transformation a lot earlier than other industries, certainly a lot earlier than film and television. Music is just a bit ahead in terms of distribution models, new distribution models, consumption models. You know, they've just been ahead of film and television. So hopefully in this role I was able to apply those learnings to the role I'm in right now. You
mentioned Story Hive, you're here now to Tell a Story Hive. Can you maybe talk about the origins, maybe the mission statement, and like why do you do this? Why does TELUS support this?
It has been always really about giving back to the community. It's sort of one of TELUS's big things, is that we want to give back to the communities that we live in, and we want to do the same for the film and television industry. So TELUS's optic TV product, so our cable television product that people can buy, is available in BC and Alberta, only in those two provinces. And we want to give back to the community, to the filmmaking community in BC and Alberta, where we operate our service. So for us, it's all about enabling individuals or groups to tell local and important stories, and through that develop their career. That is sort of, it's not quite our mission statement, but that's really what we want to do. And Story Hive is one of the things that I always say is that it's not really about making films. Making films is not really what we're passionate about. We want to create filmmakers and help them tell stories. So the focus is very much on the individuals and the groups, and how can we help them tell their story, build a career, and also build a community. So we focus on allowing everyone to tell stories on screen. That includes people that maybe don't have a lot of experience. So very much focused on emerging filmmakers. That's very important to us, to build more talent and new talent in Western Canada. We're also really focused on underrepresented communities, knowing that not everyone, for a number of different reasons, for which we would have to do a series of interviews to get into all those, but for a number of different reasons that we're hopefully getting better at identifying what those reasons are. For a number of different reasons, a lot of people do not have the same opportunities as other people. So we want to kind of, as good as we can, equal the playing field and allow everyone to tell the stories on screen, and give them the resources and the training and the funding. Sometimes it's just about money. Give them all that to be able to tell the stories.
Well, you mentioned the training, so that's where the mentorship kind of part of the program comes into effect.
That's right.
Can you kind of maybe talk about that a little bit?
So there's a few things going on. So we are very much big believers in training and mentorship, absolutely. And we especially love it when it's combined with actual funding. Because there's a lot of sort of opportunities to learn how to make a film, but you're really going to learn it when you make it. And if you want to make a film, you're going to need some cash. Yeah. So we try and do both as much as we can, where we give people funding to make a film, but every time we give out a production grant, so we give out money, you'll also get a mentor, or a number of mentors sort of assigned that work with you to really help you sort of maximize what you can do with the money. That part is really important to us. We have a whole team that makes sure that our training opportunities and our mentorship opportunities, that they make an impact, and they actually make a difference to people.
That was my next question. Who's on your team? Who here at TELUS at Story Hive works with the public?
Yeah, so we have a sort of a bunch of different teams. So I'm in charge of all the productions. So that means, basically what you can say is whenever there's a film being made with our support, my team will work with those individuals. So when it comes to getting an application suit for our grants and actually issuing the grants and helping them work with it, the films, when they're done, we actually put them in front of our customers, our TELUS customers. So we have to get the films delivered. There's a whole part to it. So whenever there's a film being made, my teams deal with it. I've got 5 people on my team, and then we have a separate team that deals with all the training and the mentorship and the distribution and the marketing as well.
Sounds like a big team.
It's about 14 people.
14 people.
Which is, is it a big team? I was doing a count, and over the last 12 months we supported in different ways. There's different ways to support over 200 films. Wow. That is a lot. And they all have to be at some point, we watched them all, for example. There's a lot of stuff to watch, and we have to process in a certain way, and there's paperwork, and there's conversations. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like for my team, actually, myself as well, the thing that takes up the most time, and this is not a bad thing, I'm not complaining, but it's just a fact, is the individual conversations with the filmmakers. Because, over 200 projects, there's teams behind each of those, and there's questions and or issues and or things that need to be discussed. But it's also the beauty of it. Like the fact that it's for us, hopefully my team feels that way, at least I feel that way. It's not just about like, oh, here we go, we're going to give you some money. There's like real people behind it that we really impact. Yeah, for sure. And that part is, for myself, and I know I can speak for my team, that's our favorite part. Like connecting with people on a one-on-one basis, being part of the journey, and hopefully have the privilege to impact their career or their journey or their storytelling thing, whatever they want to do. That is so awesome. And there's all these filmmakers that we meet often early in their career, right? Story Hive is for emerging filmmakers, but we keep in touch and sort of seeing what they do when they start. They make a short film, maybe the first time they make a film or the first time they make a film with real budget, using our support, and then where they go from there. It's just awesome. It just shows you then like, oh, this might matter. What we do might actually matter. It might actually make a difference. Who can say that about their work, right?
I was always curious, how does the process work and how do you narrow down the competition?
People from BC and Alberta are able to apply, and we get a lot of applications. We now get more than we've ever gotten before, which is, we always see it as a sort of compliment, or it might mean like we have an impact because people see that it made impact for other people, so that they want to apply as well. So we get hundreds and hundreds of applications. And the one thing that we've always been very clear to ourselves is that we're going to give everyone a chance. So we read everything. Like people complain to us sometimes about like the application process, and that's kind of long, which I don't think it is, but whatever. So we look at everything, and one of the big things for us, if you've already made 20 short films, is the 21st going to make a difference to your storytelling career or to how you build a community? Is it going to make a difference? It might, 100% it might. But also it might not. And if it's someone who sort of seems ready to make their first short film with any sort of budget, that is certainly something that we look for. Who's that person that's going to receive the money and then afterwards will be able to use that film to further their career. That's a really, really big consideration. And other considerations that are critical for us as well, that we spend a lot of time, is that we want to make sure that we give opportunities to everyone, and that includes gender parity, making sure that we don't actually talk about this publicly that much, but I think I can do this on here, that if you go back to the past few editions, you will see that 50%, at least 50% of the grant recipients are female. That is a big part for us, and that's only one of the things that we look at to make sure that we support everyone in British Columbia, and not just the kind of voices that received a lot of support in the past. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into that process, and then at one point we sort of whittle it down, and then we have this big jury day where we all sit together and figure out who's going to get the grant, and that's it.
Any plans to expand outside of BC and Alberta?
We decided we're going to stick with we want to stay in the West. I mean, things we hear a lot from the people that we work with is that there are so few opportunities in the West, funding opportunities for filmmakers in the West, and we're kind of one of the last remaining ones, funding opportunities in the West, where people really feel they get money. And also, and this might just be something that I don't know if this is a real thing, but not being in Toronto seems to be like we kind of feel excluded from certain funding opportunities, which might or might not be the case, but it doesn't really matter. So for us, being focused on the West, I think there's a great strength to this. And also, quite frankly, we offer telesubject TV in BC and Alberta, and this is kind of those are the communities that we feel committed to, because there is a product that we're selling, and we want to give back to the community, and it's only available in those two communities. There is actually a small part of Quebec where it's also available, I should say, but it's a different team, so I don't deal with that. I only deal with BC and Alberta. We feel committed to those provinces, and I think we're gonna stay like that.
Has there been like a poster boy for the program, or do you have a success story? What's been the most popular success story to date, or can you even say that or choose?
It's always it's sort of unfair because I don't want to choose someone over another. But I give you just an example, and there's lots of other examples, but I can give you an example. Which is Finding Big Country. This is a documentary. Oh, yes, a documentary about Big Country Reeves, the basketball player. And I remember meeting Kat, who's the filmmaker, for the first time, and she came in for a pitch. And actually, we might have been in this room here. And she was just fully decked out in Grizzlies gear, and she was just, she got her scrapbook and showing me like what she wants to do. And she had filmmaking experience. It was clear that she could make the film. That's always important. We're looking for people to make a film. But she really wanted to tell the story. She was personally passionate about it. It was a local story, which is important to us. We really want to support stories that take place that are from here. And so she went through the whole process, and she had applied through Story Hive eventually, and the jury gave her the grant. And since then it premiered at VIV, and it's been lots of views online, and now she's working on, she just got, I'm going to mess this up, but she got more money now for the follow-up piece that she got at TIFF just a few weeks ago. So this is kind of the perfect example where he's a very passionate, somewhat emerging, not totally emerging, but somewhat emerging filmmaker, want to tell a local story, but a great subject matter. She makes a great film, and now she can really see how her career is moving forward.
And that's exactly what the system is for, basically the program is for. And so this is a question for somebody else, actually. I asked a fellow actor, what is or was an unexpected benefit to Story Hive that you may not have seen coming?
I think when I joined, I was really mentally really focused on building careers, making great content, telling impactful story. But I was underestimating the power of community, and building communities in Western Canada, people that are maybe professionals in the industry or want to be professionals, and what they can do with each other without us necessarily. And just one of the examples is that whenever we give out a grant, there's this what we call a creators workshop. We get everyone who gets grants together, and there's like a whole day workshop where we do a bunch of stuff. And just seeing those people interacting and keeping in touch and working together. We always attend the workshops, and we can look at it when people are sort of mingling, and it's just like, oh wow, yeah, this is big. This is really big. And you can't buy this. Like we're not paying them to mingle, but they do it anyway. And then we know, once you're sort of Story of alumni, you connect with other alumni, and we can see the community that it's building. And I mean, that's just awesome. And this is what we need. And I think in hindsight, it's obvious that this was going to happen. It just wasn't on my radar, how important that community building is going to be for Story Hive.
So people they win the funding, they get the funding, and are they responsible for their own line production, or do you help? Is that part of the program where you help them with the accounting and how they spend their money?
No. So, and this was always very intentional right from the get-go, is that we want to leave people alone as much as we can. And the idea is that, I said this earlier, if you really want to learn how to make a film, you're going to just have to make a film. And you're going to make the mistakes. Yeah. And we see a lot of mistakes that are happening, and that's okay. And I always like to say, we're here for emerging filmmakers to make those mistakes, the first mistakes. Use our money. Don't use your own money, use this money. And another thing is, the films are not always that great. And they're really mixed. Some are amazing and others not so much. But of course they are. Those are people that make film for the first time or make a film with budget for the first time. They have little experience. It's a tight timeline. And they're going to make that film that's going to get them to the next step. But it might not be the best film they ever make.
It's their classroom, basically. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I mean, if for you, you're an actor, right? I mean, if you look at your work from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, would you be proud of that? You're right, we might cringe, but that you had to do that thing that if you'd see it now, you'd be like, oh, what was that? But that was your journey, right? You had to do that, otherwise you're not going to get ahead.
If TELUS were to try to summarize what story they want to share with the public, what has priority number one right now? What would it be? What would be the essence of the story?
Yeah. So local stories for us are really important. We want to make sure that we tell stories about our communities in Western Canada, because we don't think there's enough. We really like to see those. We like to see people on camera, behind the camera. We like to see people that are not necessarily represented in the media space every day. That's a big part of what we do. And it's not a requirement, but it's certainly something that we always look for. So it's about like, what is the story, but also who makes the story? Those are two really important things. I'm giving you a really vague answer, but those are the main things that we're looking at.
Lastly, you live as a Vancouver show, so I want to ask you, what's your favorite thing to do, or what is your favorite thing about Vancouver?
This is going to be a super vague answer, but there's something about the quality of living here. Things are somewhat easy here. I lived in London. Everything was a hassle. Yeah. Everything's like a thing. Like it's like getting from A to B. It's like, oh, am I really going to do this? Getting your internet installed. I'm funny. I work for TELUS talking about internet. But I remember this still. It was at the time, I think, a phone line. It's kind of like, oh, there's like 4 weeks, and then this, and it was late, and then it was like, everything was always like an uphill battle. And in Vancouver, I don't know how we've done this here, but
spoiled.
It's spoiled. We're spoiled. Yeah. Again, this is obviously a point of privilege, but things are running in a nice way, and the number of people that I know that put a value on work-life balance is huge. Like everyone in this building, everyone I work with ever since I moved here, that was always like a big deal. In London, my hours in London for my job was 10 to 7. I had to work till 7 o'clock at night. At the time, I didn't even know. Now it would be like, who works till 7 o'clock at night? That's stupid, right? So over here, that just wouldn't happen. There are some companies, but at least in my community, that would be really where people really value, to my earlier point, they value going to work, and I really value going home afterwards. And that I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's what life is all about. And life's too short to kind of, spend your all day worrying about work. There's a bunch of other stuff. We might have families, we might have friends, we have dogs, it's other things in life. What's your story, Vancouver?